Hello everybody. Today we shall discuss about principles and factors in child development. We ever thought that the human life is a very fascinating process. To see the human life proceeding to grow from a microscopic single cell to a newborn baby, and then to see this young infant develops into a child and an adult. Human life is a continuous process. As time goes by, the human being grows and develops and does not remain the same. As the individual grows and develops, many changes takes place. These changes occur in many different ways. There are changes in physical characteristics, in thinking, in behavior, in dealing with others, and so on. Indeed, great many transformations or changes occur in the body, thought, and behavior in individuals from their conception to old age. Society also expects individuals to behave in different ways as they grow old. For instance, society expects that an adolescent behaves in certain ways and a 10-year-old behaves in different ways. And the growing individual may show consistent characteristics over a particular period of time, and then we may find significantly different characteristics after a couple of years. This progress of gaining newer patterns of thinking and behaving and the significant changes in the physical characteristics, which looks as if the individual has taken a step ahead, is what the developmental psychologist terms as the progress to the next stage. Developmental psychologists feel that human development occurs in stages. A human being graduates from one stage to the other during the lifespan. It is like climbing a flight of stairs where one climbs from the first step to the second and then the third and so on. Human development also proceeds in the same way. The human infant progresses from one stage to the next. How this human development stages evokes, let us see. 0 to 2 years infancy, 2 to 5 years early childhood, 6 to 12 years middle childhood, 12 to 18 years adolescence, 18 years onwards adulthood. Of course, adulthood is further divided into youth, middle age, and old age. There is one caution we may exercise while applying the above categorization of stages. Early childhood and middle childhood stages sometimes are known as preschool years and elementary school years, respectively. This may not be applicable in a country like India, as many children may not go to school, and as such, this kind of categorization may not be justified. Now, let us see now in the elementary child school. The elementary school child falls in the age group of 6 plus to 14 plus, and that is mainly the middle childhood period with slight overlapping with the adolescence period. It is a stage between early childhood or else the preschool years and adolescence. Psychologists have always been interested in human behavior at different stages of life. A number of them have studied the middle childhood, like the infancy, the latency period, the concrete operational stage, and the industry versus inferative stage. The elementary school child is at an interesting phase of development. The rate of growth in the elementary school years is not as rapid as it is in infancy or adolescence. The first 5 years of child's life have been rapid development in all aspects: physical, language, cognitive, as well as social. Adolescence too is characterized by a spurt in development, especially the physical and cognitive development. In comparison to these two stages, middle childhood is characterized by a relatively gradual period of development. It is relatively a climber period. However, this is no way means that there is no development taking place in this stage. No, certainly not. Thus, is in fact a period of consolidation of the previous gains and a period of preparation for the future stage. The change at this period is more gradual and qualitative. Throughout the school years, the child is acquiring and mastering a vast and a new array of competencies that aid in understanding and dealing with the world. In fact, this stage is the onset of the child's acquisition of skills that are appreciated in adulthood. Let us see the special features of the elementary school child. The significant feature of this stage is that his or her elementary school contact with the outer world is now expanding. Unlike the preschool child whose primary world was the home, the elementary school child enters newer contexts: the school, the peer group, the neighborhood, hobby clubs, or sports teams. Graduating from an almost family centered existence to the wider context makes a number of demands on the child. The child is now more influenced by what happens at school, the teachers there, and the peer group rather than the family. The major point is that there is a continuous interaction between the growing child and the ever expanding environment. These interactions are varied. The result of this exposure is a continuous and steady growth of the child. Children's interactions undergo major alterations and expansions. That is, the child acquires newer ways of behavior and expanding environment. Now, the thing is, what are the various developmental dimensions? The picture of the elementary school child, in short form, it is called as ESC, is that a gawky, gap-toothed child with long limbs. The elementary school child sheds the cuteness of the babyhood and has yet not attained the adult-like features. We have a mental image of the elementary school child doing a number of things: out in the field playing games, in the classroom trying to master various subjects, and participating in quizzes and other activities. 1 minute, elementary school child is helping a friend, and the next moment, bursting into tears over something and running to the parents for help. It would be very difficult to understand this youngster at this rate. Where do we begin? That's the question mark what always be in the mind. We should view the development of these aspects of behavior in the context of age of the child. These behaviors are just outward indicators and are a result of both internal as well as external changes. These changes and the developments that occur in human beings should be observed in the. Let us see in the following way a physical and motor development. First of all, physical development refers not just to the growth in height and weight of the child, although height and weight are important in the physical development. Physical and motor development refers to other aspects like increase in muscle size, precision and control of muscular coordination, hardening of bones, growth in the brain cells, appearance of permanent teeth, etc. The rate of physical growth in the elementary school years is at a more steady pace, pace, which goes in a piece way. During this stage, the trunks of the children tend to be slimmer, the chest broader, and their arms and legs longer and slimmer. The head appears to gain the adult proportion. The bones and muscles develop at different rates. Is development of certain parts is faster than of others. Means development of certain parts is faster than of others. No wonder, therefore, toward the end of middle childhood, children look as though parts of their body are not out of proportion. Their body are out of proportion. The child has by now achieved a great deal of finer motor coordination. This makes it possible to do a lot of finer activities such as stringing beads, doing up intricate blocks, doing a lot of art and creative work. This is the age of racing, swimming, climbing, and participating in all kinds of sports. The foundation for a number of sports and games is laid at this stage. But this is a stage also for a number of falls, accidents, bruises, and other injuries. The child at this stage has developed a number of physical skills and is eager to try them out. Over enthusiasm at this stage often leads to trouble many times. Now, the thing is social development. This refers to the child is growing understanding of oneself and outer world. It refers to the child's interaction with the environment based on this growing understanding. Environment refers to both the physical things as well as the people in the environment. Social development refers to the way the child learns to interact with others through speech or physical contact. It is the confidence the child develops in reaching out for things and people around. It is the trust developed in things around and the independence displayed by the child in exploring these things around. It is the knowledge developed by the child about himself, name, sex, being good, bad, naughty, or pretty, and so on. In our Indian context, this awareness of self extends even to a growing awareness of one's caste, community, religion, region, or the language spoken aspects that are very crucial in the Indian setup. Further, it is also the knowledge developed about others around. Again, in the Indian context, this knowledge about others includes the child's awareness of the numbers of extended family, their relationship. Relationship means grandfather, grandmother, may, uncle, aunt, cousins, and so on. And position vis-a-vis the large family. For example, whether one is the third child of the young son or the eldest daughter of the family. Social development also refers to the way in which the child learns ways of the society and to be its part. During the elementary school years, the child displays a remarkable capacity of adapting to a number of newer contexts, the school, neighborhood, and the peer groups. The child acquires newer ways of communicating with adults other than the family members and age mates. It is during this stage they begin to develop a self concept. I mean, an opinion about self. This stage is also characterized by the increase in the child's ability to understand others and their points of view. Another feature at this stage is the development of a work ethos. That is, the child now learns a number of skills required in adulthood, learns to work at a given task and enjoy it. It is during this stage that the child also learns sex role behaviors. Now, emotional development. This deals with the emotions of the child: anger, fear, love, hate, affection, jealousy, shyness, aggression, dependency, tolerance, etc. This aspect of development traces the emergence of different emotions in the child. The predominant emotions present at different ages and the ways in which these are expressed. The elementary school child is much in control of emotions than the preschool child. At this stage, there are fewer emotional outbursts. The child is more reasonable and can appreciate others' point of view. The duration of the outburst is also found to be less. At this stage, the child can understand others' point of view and is in a better position to empathize with the other person and to express concern. This also enables the child to make lasting friendships. However, the elementary school child has some emotional problems, school related fears and anxieties, fear of examinations, fear of failure, diffidence, shyness, depression, aggressive behavior, etc., which are part of the emotional makeup. Now, coming to the cognitive development, which is very important. Cognition refers to the human capacity to understand the environment, to solve problems, the capacity of both the logical and abstract thought. Memory and creativity are also part of cognition. When we speak of cognitive development, we mean the orderly changes that occur in the way the children understand and cope with their world. Now, the cognitive development, when compared with the preschool child, there is a qualitative difference in the way of thinking of the child at this stage. To begin with, the child is more capable of recalling information, can make conscious efforts to remember things, begin to make a conscious effort to plan out things, keeping in mind their pros and cons. Approach to the problems becomes more strategic and conceptual rather than mechanical, trial and error based, and influenced by external properties. The child can now think mentally without having to work it out concretely. The child can mentally reverse a particular action. There is an increase in the attention span, and the child is able to work at a task for a longer duration. Over the elementary school years, the child's cognitive development becomes more sophisticated, laying the foundation for adult like thought. Language development. Language development refers to the progress of the child makes from birth onwards in acquiring language. The child is now able to put thoughts, which were only visual images earlier, into words, and can also now remember things more easily as words are used to represent things, and words are easier to remember than a series of images. Learning of language is most rapid in the early years of life, that is, from about 1.5 years to 5 years of age. This, however, does not mean that language development is complete. The child continues to refine language structures right throughout the school years. During the school years, the vocabulary interest, I mean, the interest in the vocabulary and increases rapidly. School days, which is the most advantage to the pupil, they learn words, speech performance improves, syntax becomes more complete, a greater variety of grammatical structure gets used, and the meaning assigned to words become more adult-like. Motor development. So we have studied the motor development, physical development, language development, and cognitive development. Now coming to the moral development. Moral development is the way the child learns to distinguish between right and wrong. It is a process by which the child develops conscience and learns to judge for oneself what is right and what is wrong. This requires the child to understand the situation and other people's point of view before making any kind of judgment. During elementary school years, the child begins to understand other people's points of view and the context in which they hold such views. The child therefore becomes gradually capable of reasoning out things in a better way. Now let us see a holistic view of the child. Cognitive, social, emotional, physical, language, and moral aspects in an individual's development. These are very important in our all-round development of the child. We also know that these aspects explain the child's development from different points of view. However, one crucial point that one should bear in mind is that all these aspects are interrelated and the child's developing as a total individual. By approaching things and manipulating them, the child learns more about them. These interactions are the foundation of the child's cognitive and social development. Conversely, a child whose physical development has been affected because of severe health problems may have problems in other aspects of development as well as. For instance, ill health will come in the way of concentrating on a task for a different time span, or it may affect interaction with the environment, which may retard cognitive development. On the other hand, due to physical incapacity, the child may not be able to participate in any other peer group activities, which in turn may affect his or her social as well as emotional well-being. Language and cognition are also found to be closely interlinked. Cognitive structures are important in learning of language, and language in turn helps in organizing the thought process. Language also aids in remembering things and in reasoning effectively. Thus, we can see that both the aspects of development foster each other. Moral development too is highly dependent on the cognitive development. The ability to judge the right and wrong requires the cognitive structures that will help the child to see the different pros and cons, to evaluate them, and then on the basis of on the basis of this, making a judgment. Another example would be of interrelationship between social and emotional aspects. A child who loses temper very easily and gets angry rather frequently is obviously having some emotional problem. However, this behavior will affect child's social relationships. As teachers or parents, it is therefore essential that we see the child as a unified whole. The knowledge of these various aspects of development is essential to understand the child better. At no point can we can isolate one of the aspects and try to analyze the child. So, a comprehensive approach, keeping in mind all the aspects and their intention, will help us understand and help the child better. So, these developments are unique in nature, and we need frequent assessment of these aspects timely, because guidance will help us to overcome the problems what the child is facing at school level. So if we neglect, then it may go wrong. Now let us see what are the principles of development. The primary purpose of studying the development of children is to understand them better. An orderly pattern is found in the growth of every organ of the body and area of development. For example, teeth are acquired in a specific sequence. The front teeth erupt before the molars. Although the development process is continuous, the rate or speed of development varies at different ages of the child. For example, children grow most rapidly during the first 3 years of life. In their middle childhood, that is from 6 to 12 years, the rate of growth is comparatively slow, whereas it is accelerated again when they approach adolescence. A knowledge of the trends and patterns of development will enable us to know how children develop, when and what to expect from them, how to guide. That's very important. I repeat, how to guide and provide the environment for their optimum development. The knowledge of the development patterns for different age groups helps us to know what to expect of a child and when to expect it. We may often expect too much from a child too early. For example, if we know that trying to teach algebra to a third standard child will be a futile exercise, the concepts are too complicated for the child to comprehend. Knowing what to expect at a particular age group helps us in setting up standards or measuring rods. This may be in various forms like height or weight scales, age weight scales, scales for mental age, social or emotional development. Since the pattern of development for all normal children is the same, these skills help us to judge each child in terms of norms or standards for that child's age. These skills standards should therefore be seen as guidelines rather than strict rules. The third advantage of knowing the development pattern is that it helps parents and teachers to give timely guidance to children as they grow from one stage to another. Knowing the normal development patterns makes it possible for parents and teachers to prepare children a bit of time for changes that will take place in their bodies, their interests, or their behavior. For example, children can be prepared for what will be expected from them when they enter school. Similarly, older children can be explained the reasons for physiological changes during puberty. That's very important. Now let us see which are the principles of development. Number one, development is continuous. A sudden increase in height in children during the childhood period, when we see them after an interval of 2 or 3 months, such a change in physical development gives the impression that it is sudden occurrence and that children are growing in fits and starts. However, changes in the body and behavior pattern takes place continuously. At times development slows down, at other times it is accelerated, does not stop at any time. We may be surprised to know that although the physical manifestations of certain features may appear to be sudden, the process of development is continuous. For example, teeth of a baby may appear to have grown overnight, but the process of this development begins as early as the fifth month when the fetus is in the mother's womb. However, the development proceeds at a slow pace and teeth are ready to break the gums only when the child is about 5 months old. The fact that development is continuous emphasizes the point that each stage of development has its foundations built upon a preceding stage and has a definite influence on the succeeding stage of development. Emergence of each type of behavior or development is dependent on the development that has occurred before. Similarly, how a child develops in the early years will determine the future development. So, inadequate diet and lack of protection in the early years not only affect physical development but also retard mental development in the later years. These changes have long lasting effects and are difficult to repair in later stages of life. Now, second principle, development is sequential. In nature, we find that every species or organism follows a pattern of development. The same is the case with human beings. Development follows an orderly sequence which in general is the same for most children. Each stage of development leads to the next. For instance, all children first learn to sit up without support before they stand. Similarly, they learn to draw a circle before attempting to draw a square. This order of development remains unchanged and is never reversed. The rate and speed of development may vary in individual cases, but the sequence of the pattern is the same. A child from a disadvantaged home and a child from an affluent home both follow the same pattern of development, although the latter may develop at a faster rate due to the facilities available at home. One of the sequential patterns of development relate to the two directions in which development proceeds. Firstly, development proceeds from the upper portions of the body towards the lower portions. This is referred to as head to toe sequence. Secondly, development proceeds from the entire line of the body outward towards The distant or peripheral parts referred to as near to far sequence. Hence, in a fetus, the head and the trunk are fairly well developed before the rudimentary limb buds appear. Gradually, the arm buds lengthen and then develop into hands and fingers. This growth pattern explains, for instance, why children in the early years are more adept at controlling larger muscles than the whole limbs. They are unable to control finer muscles that are required for the manipulation of tiny objects with the fingers. Now, third principle, development proceeds from central to specific responses. In studying the developmental pattern of children, it is observed that general activity always precedes specific activity. The early responses of the baby are very general in nature, which are gradually replaced with the specific ones. The earliest emotional responses of the newborn are generally diffused excitement, and this slowly gives way to specific emotional patterns of anger, joy, fear, etc. Babies wave their arms in general, random moments before they are capable of such specific responses as reaching for an object held from before them. Thus, uncoordinated movements responses are gradually replaced by specific ones. Now, fourth principle, development proceeds at different rates. Although the process of development is continuous for both the mental and physical spheres, the rate of development varies for different areas. As children grow, each area of development proceeds at its own rate and reaches its maturity in its own time period. For example, the heart, liver, and digestive organs grow slowly in childhood but rapidly during the early years of adolescence. Memory for concrete facts and objects develops more quickly than memory for abstract and theoretical material. Sometimes one aspect of development may slow down the growth and development of another area. It may therefore appear as though only one area is developing. For instance, in young children, growth in language slows when they learn to walk. The children seems to spend all their energy in acquiring the new activity. Now, fifth principle. Each phase of development has characteristic traits. Children may not necessarily pass through the various developmental stages at the same time or age because of varying developmental rates. However, studies have revealed similarities in the developmental stages which follow relatively stable sequences. Average trends emerge that help us to identify characteristic traits of each developmental stage. For example, by the age of 1.5 years, a child is normally able to walk independently. Similarly, we expect certain physical development and maturation in an adolescent. Examples, changes in body proportion, appearance of body hair, etc. Knowing the developmental patterns for different age groups helps us to know what to expect of children of that age group and the listed behaviors a child is expected to learn at each stage. These are known as developmental tasks. Some of these arise as a result of physical maturation. Example, learning to walk. Other tasks are developed from cultural or social expectations. Example, a child from a rural area is expected to learn various skills required for farming. A Kashmiri child learns to embroider at an early age. The developmental task, as suggested by the psychologist having Gust, for children from 6 to 12 years, are learning physical skills necessary for ordinary games, building wholesome attitudes towards oneself as a growing organism, learning to get along with age mates, learning an appropriate masculine or feminine feminine sex role skills in reading, writing, and calculating, developing fundamental concepts necessary for everyday living, developing conscience, morality, and a scale of values, achieving personal independence, developing attitudes towards social groups and institutions. The developmental tasks serve as a very useful purpose by acting as guidelines to parents and teachers to know what children should learn at a given age. From amongst the developmental tasks listed by Avangast for children from 6 to 12 years, let us see how these can be fostered. Building wholesome, let us see. First point, building wholesome attitude towards oneself as a growing organism. Children spend a greater part of their day with their peers and teachers at school. The kind of feedback response the child gets in school will influence the self-esteem and confidence. On the other hand, over criticism, comparing children, severe punishment, or excessive praise of anyone can lead to poor confidence among children. Second point, as per having just second point, developing conscience, morality, and role of values. Using classroom and everyday events, a teacher can instill a sense of right or wrong in the children. A teacher must set a model. At this stage, children understand concrete examples of values like honesty, respect, a sense of morality, etc. Hence, a teacher may try to inculcate these values indirectly. The teacher must praise the children who are polite and considerate, regular in their duties, and do not tell lies. Next point, learning to get along age mates. This is very important. Teachers can enhance the children's social development by putting in a little extra effort. They may help by organizing team games, group projects, and excursions to promote cooperation and adjustment among the children. Now, sixth principle, there are individual differences in development. Although the pattern of development is similar for all children, they follow the pattern at their own rate. For example, Rita already looks older and healthier than the rest of the girls of the 5th class. Juhi, on the other hand, looks the same as did, she did a year ago. These individual differences arise because each child is controlled by a unique combination of hereditary, endowment, and environmental factors. The factors affecting development of this are every child follows a developmental timetable that is characteristically unique for each child. All children, therefore, do not reach the same point of development at the same age or time. Individual differences are caused by the both hereditary and environmental conditions. The child's physical development, for example, depends partly on the hereditary potentials and partly on the environmental factors such as diet, general health, climate, etc. Intellectual development is also affected by both the generic factors as well as whether one has opportunities for experiences and learning. It is important to understand that each child is a unique individual. No two children can be expected to behave or develop in an identical manner although they are of the same age. For example, in the same class, a child who comes from a deprived environment cannot be expected to do as well as in studies as a child of the same ability whose parents put high value on education and encourage the child to study. Seventh principle, the child develops as a unified whole. To understand the child better, we must view development as something which happens to the whole child. Physical, cognitive, emotional, and moral development are different aspects of development, but they are not watertight compartments. These areas have been delineated or outlined for the convenience of our analysis and study. Each aspect is dependent on others and in turn influences the others. All the aspects are integrated and interrelated. Problems in one area of development could lead to delay in other areas of development also. For example, children who suffer from severe mental retardation differ from other children not only in their mental abilities but also their physical growth and social emotional development. So, we have studied the principles. Now, let us see factors affecting development. What are the factors affecting the development? A very important aspect, influences on development. Genetically, genetically determined factors. So there are genetically determined factors. For example, Ritu and Nitu are identical twins. They share not only looks a home but also attend the same class. Yet they are as different as chalk and cheese. While Riti is outgoing, cheerful, and a leader among her friends, Neetu is a very shy and reserved. She prefers to read and be on her own. Now, question is, what could be the reason for this amazing difference among twins who share so many similar influences? So, thus, genetical factors influences on developmental aspects. So, some of the factors that affect development are just now we studied genetically determined and are inherited from one parents. Other factors relate to the environmental and social cultural conditions. So there there may be school factors and other factors, but genetically determined factors influence more on the development. Now we shall focus on how this genetically determined factors affects the twins. What I revealed a couple of seconds ago, my name Ritu and Nitu. The twins have inherited many similar characteristics from their parents, but unfortunately for Nitu, she contracted polio when she was 4 years old. As a result, she has a pronounced limp in her leg. This deformity has had an effect not only on her physical development but also on her socio-emotional development. Therefore, the great difference among the twins. We saw how each twin has a unique individual in spite of similar genetic endowments. The factors have been broadly classified as genetic and non-genetic. These headings a number of other influences have been examined. By and large, children look a lot like their parents. Offsprings of tall, muscular parents are likely to be taller than children with petite parents. Among others, eyes, skin, and hair color are also characteristics which children inherit from their parents. Such characteristics and patterns are passed on from generation to generation by means of genetic materials. When genetic material, the child, what is this genetic material? The child will inherit is determined at the time of conception. When the sperm cell from the father fertilizes the egg from the mother to form a single cell called zygote. At the time of zygote is formed, the individual inherits certain characteristics from each of the parents through the macroscopic structure of life called genes, which are the structural units of chromosomes. Some inherited characteristics are relatively immune to environmental influences and will manifest themselves under any conditions. However, in general, most of the inherited characteristics are essentially influenced by the environment. For example, a child may be endowed with hereditary potential for physical growth, but his or her potential may be stunt- stunted due to various reasons such as lack of nutrition or illness or being forced to do heavily work. Genes, no doubt, determine the limits to which a child can do, but it is the environment that determines the exact, that is, extent to which the potentialities within these limits are realized. Let us take the first one, sex. The sex of an individual is determined at the same time of fertilization. It is the father who determines the sex of the child. I repeat, it is the father who determines the sex of the child. At the time of conception, every individual receives a total of 46 tiny rod-shaped particles called chromosomes. 23 chromosomes are contributed by the mother and the father each. Among these are also present sex chromosomes which determine the child sex. Unexplained differences between sexes appear at the moment of conception. Male children are biologically inferior than the females. More males are subject to postnatal death and behavior disorders associated with the brain damage. The male fetus also develops more slowly from early fetal life through adulthood than the female. So, sadly, in many parts of our country, the girl child loses out on this advantageous head start. Discrimination between the boys and girls in the family result in her losing out on good nutrition, education and time to play and to enjoy her childhood. She is burdened with household chores and ends up playing mother to her younger brothers and sisters at early as 6 to 7 years. There is an urgent need to make parents and teachers aware that both boys and girls are equal and should be treated as such. Now come to the discussion part, non-genetically determined factors. So far we discussed about genetically determined factors. Now non-genetically determined factors. Let us see the non-genetically field. That is conditions in the prenatal environment. This period of prenatal growth is vitally important to the child's well-being. The fetus during the prenatal life can react to maternal physiological conditions, maternal nutritional status, as well as complications of pregnancy. Maternal intake of drugs, alcohol, tobacco, or her exposure to radiations also have undesirable effects on the baby. Now, second point, maternal nutrition. The unborn child's nourishment comes from the maternal bloodstream. Pregnant women should have extra nutrient for the growing baby in the womb in terms of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and other essential elements. A malnourished mother gives a disadvantage to her baby at the very beginning of life. These effects of which influence future development of the baby. Maternal health. Maternal health conditions, that is the third point, maternal health. Maternal health conditions that are known or believed to have the greatest effect on the urban child include diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, endocrine disorders, anemia, mental retardation, and other infectious diseases. Now, fourth point, that is nutrition. Nutrition is an essential factor that influences growth and development of the child. The body uses the substances in various ways to supply energy, build and maintain body cells, and to regulate body processes. These nutrients are proteins, vitamins, carbohydrates. There are about 50 essential nutrients grouped into 6 categories. As we know, the proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. Each of these is needed by our body and in amounts which are related to age, activity, and body size. So, nutrients for healthy growth. Proteins help for growth, bodybuilding, which are available in meat, poultry, eggs, beans, milk. Carbohydrates are energy sources available in grains, potatoes, beans, nuts, and fruits. Calcium, need for formation of bones, teeth, and prevents blood clotting. Available in dairy products, citrus fruits, nuts, green vegetables. Fats, which are energy sources, meat, nuts, vegetable oil, butter, ghee. Iron, needs for formation of hemoglobin, promotes resistance to infection. Available in liver, meat, whole grain, potatoes, leafy greens. Vitamins, vitamin A, B, C, D, E, and K help the body process all nutrients and from hormones, blood cells, and tissue. Although nutrition is one of the most essential factors that influence the growth and development of the child, malnutrition is highly prevalent among preschool and older children. In India, it is estimated that out of total number of preschool children, malnutrition affects as many as one third of them. So therefore, it is important for parents and teachers to realize that if appropriate diet and environmental situation are provided, growth and development can be greatly enhanced both in normal as well as malnourished children who come from disadvantaged group. Now let us see third one, physical defects and illness. This we are experiencing in the classrooms. Children suffer from different types of physical defects and illness. Physical defects can be present at birth or may be acquired during childhood due to illness, accident, or neglect of the child's physical well-being. Disabilities may prevent children from participating in activities with their age groups. Most children with disabilities fail to function as normal children in school and may need special facilities and medical care and attention. It is equally important for parents and teachers to teach children to be accepting and tolerant of children with special needs. Ignoring or rejecting such children can make them depressed and withdrawn. These attitudes will make disabled children more aware of their disability and result in further maladjustment. Fourth one, psychosocial environment or family and culture. These two factors are closely related and their influence is continuous on the child's growth and development. The family is the child's first social experience and it provides tremendous social and emotional support. The kind of relationship the child has with the family are influenced by the type of child rearing the family practices. For example, if the parents are too autocratic and show little interest in the child instead of a warm and loving relationship, the child will suffer from a deep seated anxiety. Deep rooted anxiety or resentment towards them. Today, parents need to consider that to meet the physical demands of the child is not enough. They have to foster intellectual as well as social competence of their children. Though their love and provision of an interactive and appropriately stimulating environment, adequate food, love and care, the children have a better chance to develop their full potential in the context of their socio-cultural background. The endocrine system, this is the very important. Hormones, internal secretions produced by endocrine glands affect a number of body's most basic functions, among them growth and development. The growth hormone deficiency affects the child's body development, but intelligence is normal. Thyroid deficiency causes retardation of growth and mental retardation. The adrenal glands secretions are essential for the maturity of emotional behavior, and between 5 to 12 years, the adrenaline secreted is very little in the normal course of development. Deficiency in the activity of the sex glands delays the onset of puberty. Any point deviation, example, child who is extremely short compared to the similar age children should be tested. The pituitary hormone can be given by injection when the body is not producing enough. What are other factors? Maternal age. Mothers aged less than 17 years or older than 35 years for the first pregnancy are at the risk of complications during and for producing children who are underweight. RH factor. Incompatibility between the maternal and paternal blood type causes damage to the cells of the fetus. This leads to physical or mental complications, often serious enough to result in death or permanent injury to the child. Drugs. Drugs and chemicals taken by the mother by ignorance or by inattention can affect the fetus harmfully. I repeat, drugs and chemicals taken by the mother by ignorance or by intention can affect the fetus harmfully. This is happening in the Indian context. Drugs can alter maternal physiology. For instance, spinal anesthesia given to the mother during labor reduces maternal blood pressure and therefore reduce the supply of blood with oxygen and nutrient to the body. The effect of the drug consumed by the pregnant mother is well known. The effect of the drug consumed by the pregnant mother is well known. The deformity of the infant is typical: short arms and hands and strawberry marks on the face. So now next see X-ray and radium. Radiation therapy given to the mother either for diagnostic or therapeutic purposes, especially to the pelvic areas, can cause gene mutation and chromosomal breakage to the fetus and produce a variety of malformations and malfunctions in the baby. Nature or nurture, that's very important. These factors may also be classified into nature, hereditary, biological, maturation, etc., and nurture, environmental experiences. So, nature are genetic factors like sex, ordinal position, skin and eye color, hereditary disease. Prenatal factors, maternal health, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, predation, RH factor. Nature means it is related to genetic and maturation. Nurture related to environment and experience. The influence of heredity over different developmental characteristics varies from one character to another, such as the color of the eyes to communicate skills. The development of the genetic potential of each characteristic depends on how favorable the environment conditions are to nature nurture such characteristics. So, the role of the parents and teachers in this regard. Human beings play an active role in their own development. Every child begins to the development once programs for development. The child then actively interacts with the available environment to facilitate the implementation of hereditary endowments. The parents who are planning a family must consider the following factors if they are keen that their child develops into a healthy and balanced individual. Parents' health and socioeconomic readiness, family planning to ensure birth interval of more than 2 years, genetic counseling in case of suspected hereditary diseases, adequate nutrition and health, or during pregnancy and delivery. After the child comes into the world, there are many things which parents and caretakers can do to promote the growth and development of their children. This is of even greater importance during the critical early years of their life. Merely providing the necessary facilities and good nourishment does not end our role of taking care of children's development. So, please keep in mind the important points what we have discussed today, principles and factors in child development. So, this is also covers IGNO course block 2, and those who are taking the course from Regional Center Bijapur regarding the IGNO guidance certificate course in guidance and counseling. It's a very important course, CRG certificates in guidance. So please read the things whatever discussed today, and keep in mind the developmental task factors affecting on growth and development, principles of growth and development. So hope you understood the things. Be safe and protect yourself from COVID-19. I hope you got the information, and read well and be positive in thinking and fight against the COVID-19. We all fight against this COVID-19. So this is a message from RC Bijapur Regional Center, IGNO Bijapur, and prepare yourself for examinations. We have discussed very important points in this. Thank you.